North Carolina. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I feel like I should do a full disclosure. So Jaye was my boss at Lady Slipper Music, which was a women's music distribution company in Durham, North Carolina. Yeah,
That was-
another lifetime ago. Then another lifetime ago, she was a contractor, and I worked for her while I was still a musician on the road, too. Whenever I came back to town, I'd work for Jaye. So full disclosure, Jaye was a contractor and made so much money doing that, thought she'd go into real estate, but which I think is an interesting also discussion of switching hats from being a contractor to going into real estate.
Well, ironically, it wasn't about the money, Piper. You know, I was just getting too old and injured to keep doing what I was doing. So I'm like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And since we had been buying houses and flipping them, I'm like, maybe I'll just do real estate. So it was an old and injured thing. So
And Kat worked at Weaver Street Market, and one of her many hats was hiring musicians, and that's how I met Kat. I was a musician, and she would hire Kid Sister to come and play sometimes. We were lucky enough. So Kat.
you knew that before I did.
Yes. Yes, I did. And then Kat became an artist. And so lots of hat wearing here was this thing that I was telling Monique. So that's an introduction. And now you're both working together. You are together and in real estate.
And I think, sort of counting real estate is a different sort of business than, like, say, us. We're in a service business. But at the same time, you're in a service business, too.
It's totally a service business.
And you don't really work for yourselves, but you do. So
Totally
Explain-
self-employed. Yep.
And explain a little bit that dynamic, because not everybody understands how that real estate, thing works as far as like an agent, a broker, agency, or whatever it is that you do as a realtor.
The easiest way to understand it is just to remember that all realtors are self-employed. We're self-employed. We work under the umbrella of a BIC, or a broker in charge. So they're not technically our boss, but they kind of are. Like, they're the broker in charge of the firm, and you could have 20, 30, 40, 50, 300 agents in a firm. So your interaction with your broker may be never, none at all, but it's still your book of business. You're still responsible for your own business and everything else. You're just under the umbrella of a BIC. North Carolina has made it much easier for people to be what we call one-offs, where they are their own BIC, but they're just one firm, like one agent, one firm, me doing things. I find it easier to work under somebody else's umbrella. So self-employed, but work under the umbrella of someone else.
And currently, you are. Do you want to mention who your umbrella is under?
Oh yeah, no, I'm happy to mention it. Inhabit Real Estate is a local company in Durham and Chapel Hill currently, so it's a small local firm, not one of the national guys, with a really strong community presence, which I'm very happy about.
So, I know that you've been a realtor for how long?
I like a challenge, so I launched my license in October of 2001.
Wow.
Now, what happened in September of 2001? We launched the business, and of course, real estate went into a free fall because everything was in a little bit of chaos then. So it was a very challenging first year.
And then talk a little bit about, and I'm going to just sort of bring the timeline along, the 2008 banking crisis. How did that affect what you did? And now talk about, too, where your relationship with you and Kat are along this timeline. Are you working together then or not?
No, Kat and I have actually only started working together in the last 2 years. So we've had very separate career paths all along, and Kat coming into the business was a little bit more convenience than desire. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was always our backup plan for when Jay's assistant retired. We knew at some point her assistant was going to retire, and I was going to then step in and be the assistant. So I got my license 6 or 7 years ago, something like that, and I've just sort of been waiting in the wings for the right time.
And enjoying life outside of real estate until she absolutely had to come into real estate.
Yep.
Totally makes sense. But so go back to the 2008, the banking crisis, and kind of what happened with your business then, and how did that impact like home life in essence?
Well, it didn't impact our home life much at all at that time. Kat and I weren't working together. It was more of a stressor for my business. But the reality is that the Triangle market did incredibly well throughout that period relative to the rest of the country. We didn't have the giant tanking. We did have a drop in property values, but we still had people wanting to be here, and we still had people coming here. So there was still business to be had. You just had to work a little bit harder to get it. And we've always been really good about planning for the rainy days and keeping cash reserves. So there was no like time or crisis point in there where like, oh my God, we're going to lose the house or anything like that, which is something when you're self-employed and everything is based on your ability to produce income, and your ability for reasons beyond your control is hampered. But we did okay through it. And like I said, the Triangle did not, we weren't fire sailing things. Yeah, there were things in foreclosure and stuff like that, a higher percentage than usual. But this is what I told my clients who were thinking about selling during the downturn. It's like, just wait. Just wait. It's going to come back up. And most of them did. So the only people who really lost money here were the people who panic sold or had to sell because they were moving out of market. And there weren't that many of those.
Well, that's good news. We also, our business survived that banking and credit crunch. It was difficult for us just because we wanted to expand at the time, and it was we just couldn't get credit or to do the things we wanted to, and it was kind of a weird thing, right? You had to get real scrappy about what you wanted to do. Did you have this sort of the same thing with the credit crunch and trying to get scrappy?
So what happened to us mostly was that we couldn't buy anything. So in addition to like selling real estate, we invest in real estate. So we would pick up rental properties from time to time, things like that. But because my income was down and I already had X number of mortgages and they tightened up all the regulations, my ability to invest in real estate basically got hamstrung. So it's like the bank wouldn't give me any more mortgages, even though everything was paid and everything was current. They were just like, nope, we're not taking any more risks on these things. So it stopped a certain momentum we had for acquiring properties and building wealth. It just, kind of nipped that in the bud.
I hope that we can go into this area where about wealth. So there are certain levels of women-owned businesses, right? And so like a massive percentage, like 70-something odd percent, don't exceed $50,000 a year. I know you make more than that. Then there's another level where it's about 250 and below. There's like, I don't know, maybe 3% that make about that much. And then 3% exceed even higher than that, between 250 and $1 million. And my guess is you're over the 250 as far as just raw income.
Gross.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah,
gross.
except for a couple of years, you always have a challenging year or a down year. We've had a few years where we haven't broken the $250,000 threshold, but by and large, we routinely break that. We don't get much higher than that though, because there's a to give the level of customer service we need to give, there's a finite amount of business you can actually do. And there are other ways that we could do it. We could bring in help and we could do more things, and that's what most agents do. They pyramid it out. It's just not been my choice. I like the level I work at, and I like the expertise I bring to the table. And you can't just farm that out.
Yeah, it's totally. So what happens is the core value of your business becomes what's in your head, your experience, everything you bring to the table after, I happen to know this about you, that you come from a family of people that are capable of swinging a hammer, which I am not.
She's
I come
not.
by it honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you've had this whole life experience through your family, and then your own experience as a licensed contractor, and now you're not only are you a realtor, I know you actually have a broker's license. All right.
Yeah, but that's not. It used to be special, but that's not special anymore because in North Carolina you have to be a broker to sell real estate. So
Okay,
everybody
so that's
has a
interesting.
broker's license. Yeah.
I
So when I
see. Okay.
started, there were salesmen and then there were brokers.
I see.
And if you
Okay.
wanted the higher degree of license, you had a broker's license.
I gotcha.
I still think we should probably still have that. We should have salespeople and we should have brokers, and they should not be the same. But North Carolina decided to do it differently. Everybody's a broker, but now they've made it okay. Everybody's a broker, but now they're brokers and brokers in charges, and the brokers in charges are now the old brokers, and so it's a lot of language stuff that just confuses people more.
Like me.
Right. But yes, so way back when there were salespeople and brokers, yes, I was always a broker. Again, I had my broker's license because if I bought a property, I wanted to be able to buy and sell the properties I was flipping.
Ah, right. Okay. So
It
so
didn't- it
what
didn't
happens is,
necessarily-
right, yeah, you become this rare small percentage, just like 3% of women-owned businesses actually break that. Just over 250, right around 250. So congratulations on that. That is a 3%, right? That's not a very big, and you probably
Didn't know that. Didn't know that. Feeling really proud of myself now. Yeah.
I know, right? That's a big deal. It is a very big deal. And so, also, I also, like in our business, the core, we share responsibilities. I'm sure, you guys do too, but ultimately there's like this tech knowledge in my head that if I go away, it's hard to replace. Right?
Right. There are parts of your job that you just can't sub out to someone, and there are parts of my job that I can't sub out to someone. It is not. I will say, like, if I did it in a different model where I brought in buyers agents and I gave them because it's the buyers, they take up so much time. You can have an unlimited number of listings because once you get an input, it's front loaded time, but then it's on the market and then it sells. Da 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 da. Buyers are one-on-one out in the field, hour dragging things. You can only work with so many buyers at a time. So the standard model is an agent comes in, they handle all their own listings, but then they have buyer's agents who take the buyers out. So you're working. The agents are sharing their commission because they're getting the leads from the breadwinner, or the rainmaker. They're getting the leads from the rainmaker, and then going out and helping them buy houses. That's not a model that I've been comfortable with. It's not something I want to do, and so I still do all my own buyers firsthand.
Well, that's amazing. It is hard because, should you have to take some time away. And I'm sure that's where Kat's main job comes in to help bridge those pieces, right? Talk a little bit about, Kat, what it's like to have that, that relationship where you're the second at work and then sort of what happens at home.
Well, let's see. I feel like all my jobs and all my life, I've been always an assistant to a boss or second to a boss, if you will. And I'm really good at that. I feel like I'm a good second. I'm a good sweeper. I'm a good cleanup person. I can follow along with the details. And I've made my peace with that, if you will. So I feel like I'm suited to the position that I am in with Jaye. And as far as home life, I don't think, it's not like, Jaye's going to say something different, but I don't feel like we have much of a hierarchy in our home. I don't feel like I'm the second and she's the first, or I'm the first and she's the second. That's not really how we do the home life. It's totally different.
I see the home life as it's Kat's world and we just live in it. So.
I get it. Part of it is it's like, the idea that you share duties. you're sharing your life, and I get that, there's this dynamic even before. And what's interesting about y'all is that you didn't start the business together. And I'm finding I've done some preliminary interviews of couples in business and how they worked. And what I noticed, one is at about the 7-year mark, they stopped working together. Now we're different. We've been at it for 20 years, right? So that's an interesting thing. And the other thing I noticed is there's no formal. That's our 15-minute mark. There's no formal business discussion in the business. Now you guys are a little bit different, meaning that we sit down and think about our own personal goals, but
Having a formal meeting is what you're talking about, like, because you're available 24/7 pretty much. It's like I would imagine you end up discussing business. You don't have necessarily a formal meeting. But so
Actually, that's not true.
That's not how we
That's
do
not
it.
how we do it. No, we refrain from talking about business most of the time, and we have what we call, folder meetings in the morning, where I bring all the folders. We go through the folders, at least weekly, and get everything, all the tasks organized and set up, and then after that, we might touch base throughout the day, but after 5 o'clock, no, it's not happening.
Now, I don't.
go ahead.
I don't stop working at 5 o'clock. The cat does. Like, that's part of the deal. Like, she's my assistant. She is not the rainmaker, so to speak. I have to keep the business going. So yeah, I'll keep working. I'll answer texts. I'll do emails, things like that. I'm showing properties at 7 o'clock at night often. We have no social life because my schedule is dependent on when my buyers can see properties. So that when can they see properties? They can see properties in the evenings and on the weekends because they have day jobs. So, but that's necessarily more my problem than Kat's. So, but again, it's being in a job that has a schedule that's a little challenging. But she was used to the schedule for the last 20 some odd years. So getting used to that schedule isn't different. It's just in the daytime we have more time together now.
Well, so that's really amazing, because what I did find was that most couples weren't having this, and since I think the difference being that
even formality.
yeah, this formal sort of business discussion. So that might be a really big key for you guys going forward, because you had so many years of having an assistant and having this routine and having this meeting, that this allows you to continue, whoever the assistant is, and it happens to be Kat, and you have this capacity to just go ahead and say, well, after 5, I no longer need your assistance, and you get released to whatever it is that you're doing at home.
But
Most
when you
most of the
you
time
have
Kat does their daytime business hour things. They have to happen during business hours.
all right. But when you guys you had property together, and I thought when you had property together, how were the jobs divided on that?
Just based on skill sets, really. So
Right, so I managed, we did divide up the tasks. Jay was mostly in charge of repairs. I was mostly in charge of finding the tenants and collecting the rents and taking care of the leases, kind of thing. So that's how we divided it up.
And did you have very defined kind of meetings, cutoffs for that?
Well, that was a little bit easier. Yeah, we haven't had an annual meeting, but with tenants, you sort of put them in place, and if they're good, they run on their own. You don't have to have a lot. It would be, they would email me about a problem that I couldn't handle, and then I would approach Jay in the morning, not at 5 o'clock at night, which the tenants love to do, right? 5 o'clock on a Friday, they have a problem.
now they've had the problem all week. They just decided to tell us about it at 5 o'clock on Friday.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I imagine that does happen.
And when I said several hats, Kat, when you were an artist, did Jaye help you with that endeavor?
Oh, yes. She helped me a lot in setting up my shows. Like, she carried a lot of stuff. She helped me build canvases. So she helped me with the physical aspects, helped me get set up physically and things like that. So that
I
was
don't
great.
give her very much art advice. That's just not a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, so really, you've been working together for a very long time. I mean, I know you're saying it's only been 2 years, but going back to when you started property together, I
We
mean,
like to say we're a good team.
We are a good team.
We complement each other in terms
Yeah.
of what we have the patience for and what we don't have the patience for. I don't have the patience for tenants. So if Kat didn't deal with them, they would all be buried in the crawl spaces.
You
So
wouldn't have any, is what I'm hearing.
But also, what I like to say to Jaye is we both have a high tolerance for work. We both like to work, we both respect work, and we both acknowledge that we like to work. So if Jaye's working hard at 7 o'clock, I'm not bitching at her that she should be home watching TV with me or something. You know, and when I'm down in my studio working, Jaye's not like, geez, why isn't she doing the dishes? You know, because we have a high tolerance and a high respect for each other's work ethic.
So that's interesting. One of the things that I think is really valuable is the idea that you're leaning into your strengths and that you have these shared values. Now I'm going to ask you a question opinion-wise, and then the second part of that is giving advice. So first is, do you think, well, maybe I'll just ask the question, what advice would you give a couple contemplating going into business together?
I think that a couple, if they're going into business together, they really need to examine how they feel about work in general. Do they think work is 9 to 5 and you're done? Or do they think work is a 24/7? Those are two different value systems, I think. And also I think they need to talk about, like, am I happy taking direction? Am I the kind of person that can take direction? Or am I the person that needs to be in charge? Because I think if you have two people in charge, it may not work. If you have two people who need direction, that might not work either. Like, I feel like there has to be a driving force. And then they have to have a unified goal. Like if it's, as you are going to interview later, two musicians, is their shared goal going on the road and touring and putting out records and writing music and doing all of this stuff? Are they into the promotion? Or is one of them like, whoa, I'd like to write music and be behind the scenes, but I'm not going to be on stage. I don't know. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But you have to be sure that the two together work in harmony, that they're pulling in the same direction.
Jaye, what kind of advice would you give?
you just it's the same advice I give young couples going into relationships. You've got to find your sense of humor. You have got to learn to laugh at things, because if you don't, you're toast. You are toast. You have got to be able to laugh things off. And you also have to really distinguish what's really important and what's just important to you. And Kat and I have been through this a lot. It's like there are things in our business that are extremely important. These are high risk, high dollar, deals that we're putting together. And if you drop a peg, the deal could fall apart. That's catastrophic to someone. Like, we'll survive it. If we lose one deal, we'll survive it. But if that person loses that house, they may not get another shot at one if something happens. So we distinguish, hey, this is important to me because I like my life orderly and I like these things to happen. That's important to me. But we both have to be on the same page when something's important to the core of the business. Because if we start dropping balls in the business, then people say, oh, they screwed up and the deal didn't go through. That's your reputation. That stops further business from coming in. That clogs up the pipeline. So you distinguish the mistakes. You decide which of the mistakes are important and which of the mistakes are just important to you. They're all still mistakes. They all still need to be talked about. But you gotta laugh at the ones that are important to you, and take seriously the ones that are important to the business. Right? Develop your sense of humor, and then distinguish what is laughable and what is serious.
I think those are two good pieces of advice. And so one of the things, just a little bit longer, bear with us, and that is, I'm hearing this advice, and I know that it's pegged to a story, and I would love for you to unpack the idea of, in your business, you care about who you serve, and it's important that these pegs don't get dropped, and it's not a laughable situation. I mean, it's okay for you personally, but the client is the one that could potentially suffer, not just losing a house, but something bigger. Talk about that story that you told us about that.
Very close friend of Kat's, trying to buy their first house, and I was helping them out. And they ended up needing, we did find a house that fit her criteria and fit her budget, and it was a little further out of town, but it worked. And the issue was that it was a HUD house. A HUD house requires a special certification on the realtor to have the HUD certification. The brokerage has to have a HUD certification to sell a HUD house. Our brokerage didn't have it. The brokerage I was with at the time didn't have it. So I could not represent her moving forward. So I located a local HUD certified agent. I put her in touch with that agent and let them do the deal.
Okay, so that relinquished you from the contract that you originally had with that particular client. Is that correct?
Well, that's kind of funny that you said that. I don't actually typically have contracts with my clients. I always say, look, in the buying process, we're just dating. Now, while we date, I want to date exclusively. In other words, I don't want you calling other agents to show you houses because I don't want to, spend weeks educating you, getting you ready, finding the right house, but the house comes up while I'm out with another client, and you just call the next, jack-in-the-box realtor, and once you've seen the house with them, they're your agent. So it's like, while we're dating, we date exclusively. But when you're ready to write an offer, I have to have that contract because legally that severs me from any responsibility to the seller and binds me to the buyer. So we have to have it then. But at that point, we had just been dating, so there was no quote-unquote contract to let her out of. It was just this is the best course forward for you. This is the right house for you. I can't help you with it. Here's someone who can. And to me, that's ultimately, that's the kind of service that we like to do. It's like, we're successful enough, I don't have to win every deal. If it's the right thing for the client, I have no problem passing it off in that situation. I'll do the same thing on geography. Like, if they want to buy in Raleigh, I'm not, I get lost every time I go to Raleigh. I'm not doing that. So, but anyway, what happened with this person was the HUD agent didn't properly prepare them on what it's like to buy your first home and the mistakes that you can make. And at that point, I wasn't her agent anymore. So 3 days before closing, her car broke down and she went out and bought a new car. Well, as you know, when you're getting ready to buy a house, you can't do something like have a car payment. It will kick your ratios out. She couldn't qualify for the loan anymore. So literally a few days before closing, she lost the house. Now, this was 15 years ago.
I think so, yeah.
Right around the downturn, which is why she had this opportunity for this great house. It was during that 2008-9 meltdown. But she had this opportunity. She didn't get it. To this day, she is still renting. Mm-hmm. And that house has 4 times the value of what she was going to buy it for. So that is life. That's a life-changing mistake that agent made by not coaching her on what she needed to do getting ready for closing. Her life was forever changed by that. That's the ramifications of not doing our job well.
And I think that really speaks volumes that after so many years, this story still sticks with you, and I think is probably a big driver for not making those mistakes.
Not making those mistakes, but also even in subsequently when I have turned clients over to someone else, I'm still checking in with them now. I have trust issues now. It's like, hey, did your agent tell you this? Oh, great, But it's, because they're like kids to me sometimes. And I mean, even the ones that are older than I am, they're like kids to me. It's like I want to take care of them. So
that's amazing. And I one of the reasons why I will not have a different realtor in my life. you have anything that you want to?
Well, this is so one thing I was going to ask everybody that we interview, because this is an issue in our household, and seeing if it's common. How do you deal with meals?
I do the vast majority of the cooking.
Do you notice the pause in the?
I make sure Jay has food.
It is a scheduling thing because I'm often working 5 to 7, so Kat has to do most of it. I call it meal prep, not cooking, because I actually really like to cook. That's kind of one of my joys. And so on the weekends or when I have a day off or something, I will cook.
If she wants something that tastes good, she's got to make it. Otherwise, she's getting, carbohydrates and some protein.
I'm alive, it will always be organic. It will always be, fresh food. It will never be processed, packaged things. We don't do that. But it may not always
Doesn't always taste good.
taste great.
So I get it. Sometimes it's like we're just getting through the day sometimes, and especially as couples. You guys have an office, and we are living
Currently.
in our office, so it becomes a weird thing sometimes because we don't get lunch. You would think it'd be easy, but
No, well, we actually, we do have an office, but I only use the office to meet clients. I work from home, so we are both working from home all day. And so we'll often convene for lunch or something. Lunches are easy. It's dinners that are a little more challenging.
your schedule
again-
is so off. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no set, hey, you cook, I clean, that kind of stuff. The rule in our house is whoever cooks, the other person cleans, whatever happens. That backfires because I swear to God, she can dirty 5 pots making a salad. I don't understand how, but it happens.
Jay loves it. She's the master of the one pot meal. So there's only one pot to pick up. But I will say, this year, our level of business was much, much higher. And I have discovered that at the end of the day, because I'm working so much more because she's working so much more, at the end of the day, I am more tired than I used to be, and we have started relying on eating out more often or door dashing something. But so far, we're doing okay.
Yeah, for 2 people who'd never door dashed,
Yeah,
for the last year, we've door dashed a lot. So, but
I get it. That's an interesting question. Now, that does leave me, and I don't want to take too much time because it's almost 10 o'clock, and that is self-care. Do you have a routine for both of you, watching each other, because it's important?
Well, Kat makes sure that I get my vitamins every morning. Like, I get a little shot glass with my vitamins in it, with my coffee. Like, she's awesome about that. Like, I never have to remember it, I'm having my coffee, the shot glass with vitamins in it appears, so I get that. And
I do think this goes back to work schedule. Because I know that sometimes Jay literally needs to put her phone down, disconnect, and not talk to anybody. And so I think being able to push all of the questions into the daytime so that at night I'm not asking her questions about this file or that file makes it a little easier for me to say, okay, at 5 o'clock, we don't have to talk about work unless there's a fire or a phone call. And that actually helps Jay to dial it down and disconnect and recharge. And we also plug in a few times a year where we go places where we don't have internet connection, we don't have cell service, and we just relax and have fun. So I think that's how we both look after each other, and I look after Jay. For myself, stopping at 5 o'clock is key as well. I don't want to be thinking about work at 8 o'clock at night. It's, I'm tired and I'm going to make a mistake. And we've talked about that too. We can't be talking about things at the wrong time because you will make a mistake. It's better just to, if we can put it off till the morning, just stop talking, go to bed, wake up, and deal with it then.
Yeah, 98% of the crises that come into my inbox after 8 o'clock, there's zero that I can do about it until the next day anyway. So turning off my phone at 8 has become another thing. It's like I turn off my phone at 8. Don't look at my. I mean, I sometimes, if I've got a deal going, if I got a negotiation going, we're waiting to hear from something, I will of course stay tuned. But on a routine thing, we turn off the phones at about 8.
I'm glad that you have this idea of self-care sort of already in the relationship, and that you guys are taking care of each other, because that's really, really important.
It's also really important to both of us that we work out, right? So this is something that we've built into our schedules. Like, I work out during the day because, again, I have busy mornings, I have busy evenings. So middle of the day, I take a break and go work out. She sometimes comes with me if I'm going to the gym, but Kat works out every day as well. So it has helped us. That's part of the self-care we've built into our schedule.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad I asked. That's not something that I would ask as a friend. You suss it out in between conversations. Oh, look, they've been working. They did this. So we have taken a great amount of time, and I cannot thank you enough for being willing to come on and be probed and prodded about what you guys do and your life as a couple in business.
It's a good fit. It's working out really well.
It's a good fit.
We had concerns, because I've had an assistant for 17 years who was not Kat. So Kat had to learn to read my mind in a new way. So it's just different.
Right. Well, I'd love to continue on because I got 1,000 more questions, but maybe we'll reprise this in the new year. All right, y'all, get on your day. Glad to have spent some time with you this morning.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Take care.
Thanks. Hey,
Hi,
y'all.
y'all.
I'm Piper.
I'm Monique. As a woman and minority-owned business, we're interested in talking to couples that look like us. Lesbian couples in a service business. That's why this podcast exists. I've been looking for a queer business podcast that showcased LGBTQ and BIPOC owners. Found a few in each category, but none that mixed the two, so we created Piqued Interest Podcast. This show is looking to honestly connect with other successful LGBTQ couples in business.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. We're open to nominations, introductions, and suggestions for guests.
Hit us up in the comments, and thanks for watching and listening.
Thanks. Join us for a special 3-night retreat designed for lesbian couples running a business who are ready to level up and create new wealth in their current business. The retreat will be held at a beautiful beach venue in Oak Island, North Carolina. On the first night, we'll have a relaxing dinner and cocktail social, along with an introduction to daily habits you'll be starting. The next 2 days, we'll walk through creating more time and space to level up in your business. Lean into your strengths as a couple to fuel your $1 million business model. Focus on your vision, mindset, and more. We've built in time for walks on the beach and plenty of moments to enjoy the saltwater air. Walk away with $1 million plan for your business that features understanding of your personal genius, a custom offer that is scalable, and new connections with other business owners that understand your life. The cost per couple is $10,000. We look forward to seeing you there.